The Aston Martin that's as cheap as a new Ford Focus. Cash cars on the DB7, an emerging classic that must surely go up in value soon. Buyers can pick up a good Aston Martin's DB7 for less than £20,000. The DB7 has repeatedly been tipped as a future classic that should rise in value, but be warned, says our Cash Cars columnist. People have been predicting that the DB7 will surely go up in value for years now. Don't expect Ford Focus-style running costs. Keep an Aston running is pricey, by Tony Middlehurst for thisismoney.co.uk. Published 7:41 British Summer Time, the 30th of July 2019. Updated 9:45 British Summer Time, the 30th of July 2019. Let's get this over with. James Bond. Right, that's the first and last time you'll see that name in this Aston Martin story. Now, in the mind of our resident motoring miser Uncle Bob, there are three classes of car. One is mainstream, which is your Fords, Kias, VWs and such like. Two is premium, including brands like Audi, Mercedes, Jaguar, BMW, and three is thoroughbred, taking in names like Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bugatti and, strangely, Aston Martin. It's strange because you can pick up a DB7, a proper Aston, for the price of a very mainstream Ford Focus. The DB7 is the car that set Aston Martin on its path to the cars of the modern era. From the subsequent DB9 to today's DB11, this disconnect between high brand perception and low cost is very attractive to a rampant tightwad like Uncle Bob. If, like Bob, you find it hard to imagine the prospect of a £16,000 Aston Martin, see our Auto Trader example below, you might think that now is the time to turn that secret DB7 fantasy into reality. You might never get another chance. A decent DB7 can be bought for under £20,000. That is the same price as a Ford Focus Z-Tech. Try doing this with an Italian big-namer. Even the unloved Ferrari Mondial rarely drops below £25,000. It goes without saying that you shouldn't really compare the cost of new cars with old ones, or a sporting GT with a family hatchback, but the DB7 is cheap for an Aston Martin, and the car world is littered with people kicking themselves that they didn't buy that X, Y or Z when it was that price. So let's take a cold-eyed squint-a-roo at a lovely GT with great engines, a globally understood badge, and the cheapest route into thoroughbred motoring. A short history of the DB7. The DB7 was the first fruit of Ford's involvement in Aston Martin, which began in 1987 when the Blue Oval took a big chump into M's shares. 7 years and several zillion pounds of investment later, Aston's first modern car appeared in the showrooms. Modern gets speech marks there because, although the DB7 looked like a completely new car, there was more than a whiff of Jaguar XJS about its front-engined, rear-wheel drive undergarments. If Jaguar's boardroom hadn't knocked back Ian Callum's design, the DB7 could just as easily have ended up a new Jag. It didn't, though, and the XJS got a new V8 engine, so the 1994 return of the DB name from its 22-year exile could be marked by an Aston-appropriate 335 bhp 3.2-litre supercharged inline-6, with a 5-speed manual gearbox or a 4-speed automatic gearbox. 2 years later, an open-topped but also, remarkably, stiffer, Volante convertible was released. Its plusher suspension settings migrated over to the coupe in the same year, along with airbags, new instruments and switchgear and longer front seat cushions. The early 7's hard-to-mend composite bonnet went into the skip, and the Series 2 DB7 was born. In 1999, a normally aspirated Ford Cosworth 5.9-liter V12 engine was rammed into the DB7 to create the V12 Vantage. In 1999, a normally aspirated Ford Cosworth 5.9-liter V12 engine, two V6s pulled together, was rammed into the DB7 to create the V12 Vantage. Although the 420 bhp V12 motor was nearly twice the size of the 6, its power advantage was relatively modest at 85 bhp. It also had an extra 130 kilograms to cart around, so there wasn't that much difference between the two cars on 0 to 60 miles per hour times, both of which began with a 5. The V12 was 20 miles per hour faster though, at 185 miles per hour. Perhaps more relevantly, it was also seen by aficionados as a more balanced all-rounder than the 6. It had better cabin trim, bigger brakes and more driver footroom, both of which had been issues in the earlier car. The transmission choices were now between a 6-speed manual, or a 5-speed automatic, one gear up in both cases on the old DB7. Unsurprisingly, there was a big buying shift away from the 6s once the 12s rolled into town. By 2000, production of the 6 had stopped, the factory's attention having switched to souping up the big V. The outcome of that was the mesh-grilled, bonnet-vented, boot-spoilered 435 bhp Vantage GT and the 420 bhp GTA Touchtronic Automatic of 2002. Both of these limited edition cars featured model-unique black oakwood interiors and improvements to the suspension, braking and aerodynamics. Even though the 6-speed manual GT had shorter gearing, its 0 to 60 miles per hour time was practically unchanged at 5.0 seconds. Try as many DB7s as you can before you commit to buying one, says our Cash Cars writer Tony Middlehurst, and look for one that's been driven and looked after. In 2004, the V8-powered DB9 finally brought the curtain down on the DB7. Boo! Or should that be hooray? DB7 running costs aren't low. They're not drive-and-forget cars. There's an old-fashioned feel to the servicing requirements. For example, you'll need to change the oil in the rear axle, gearbox and differential every 30,000 miles. Not bothering is a shortcut to disaster. If a problem pops up, you'd best be ready and able to sort it quickly. You don't really want a 100k plus mile car, but nor would you want a low miler that's just been left to gather dust in a sealed garage. Service histories have never been more important. Try as many DB7s as you can before you commit to buying one. Running costs, definitely more expensive than a Ford Focus, and Aston Martin will not be cheap to run. Expect fuel consumption to be 20 mpg or less and insurance to be costly, although a limited mileage classic car policy should substantially reduce that. These costs may be the least of your problems, however, as maintaining rare luxury cars can cost a small fortune. Tires and other consumables will be expensive, but if things go wrong, life can get very pricey indeed. Budget at least £1,500 per year to keep the car on the road and have a contingency fund for major work. Read more at independent site astonmartins.com, which advises against buying one if you can only just afford to run it, and join the Aston Martin Owners Club in any local groups. Finding a good independent Aston Martin specialist will make things cheaper than going to a dealer, and while that specialist will cost more than any old local garage, those in the know have the best chance of diagnosing and fixing problems swiftly and properly. If you have £20,000 burning a hole in your pocket, you could get busy with Ford's configurator to spec out a new Focus. Or you could start trawling the classifieds for an Aston Martin DB7. Aston Martin DB7, why buy one? For years, Aston followers have been saying that DB7 values were bottoming out. So far, they've been wrong. In 2005, a used DB7 was worth £25,000 to £30,000. Today they're grubbing around in the £14,995 pool. Of the 7,000-odd DB7s made between 1994 and 2004, there are still about 1,600 running around on UK roads. That relative lack of rarity, plus the lingering effect of Ford's brand-depressing connection, is keeping values low. However, the number of UK-registered non-Vantage DB7 manuals went up in 2018, suggesting either that cars are being imported or that the ones that are already here are being restored, or both. Either way, these are signs of growing interest, and that should mean soon-to-be growing values. The trick to striking the Aston motherlode lies in identifying when the price curve is starting to head back up and buying something good before it does. There's not that much price variation between the coupes and the Volante convertibles. More interestingly, the gap between the prices of the blown 6s and the V12s has narrowed significantly over the years, even though dynamically the V12 is a better car. For a sub-100,000 mile 3.26, you'll be looking at £18,000 to £20,000. For a V12 engine Vantage, it's going to be £21,000 and up. AY history advantage with under 50,000 miles will be around £32,000 to £33,000. You can pay a lot more, of course. Uncle Bob practically choked on his cornflakes the other day when he saw a 200-mile DB7 Vantage from 2004, the last year of production, at £95,000. The limited edition Vantage GTs and GTAs from 2002 are rare by design. £167,000 new. It's thought that only 302 of them were made, 190 GTs and 112 GTAs, and of that number, just 84 were right-hand drive. These cars tend to have investment mileage, i.e. sometimes considerably less than 50,000. Bob found an 03 manual GT in Solway Grey with a tan, ocean blue interior and 16,000 miles at £60,995, and an automatic 03 GTA in silver with exactly the same mileage at £49,995. Just 99 coach-built DB7 Zagatos were built in 2004, and at current estimates you'll need over £350,000 to get one of them. The Zagato is the legendary Italian styling house's take on the DB7, complete with the calling card double bubble roof lino and a real rare bird. Just 99 coach-built DB7 Zagatos were built in 2004, and you'll need over £350,000 to get one of them, but even that is common as much compared to the Kezigla, only 10 of which 5 coupes, 5 Volantes, were built for the Lancaster Group in 2002. Black on black with 19 inches wheels and no interior wood, this gangsta DB7 came with its own numbered IWC wristwatch. Uncle Bob saw a 20,000-mile one auctioned off at the 2017 NEC Classic Show for just under £49,000, which is unlikely to have lost the new owner any money 2 years down the line. So what would Bob choose, a 6 or a 12? Well, if he wasn't planning on driving it, an early manual 6 in the hope, expectation that it will be perceived as having more classic appeal. For fun on the road, a late 12. Light-colored DB7s are more popular than dark ones, even though they're not quite so good at hiding the blood of the various henchmen you will be running over in the course of your espionage duties. Whatever DB7 he might buy, Bob would definitely be scoping out one of Ashton's own pre-owned vehicle warranties. Aston Martin DB7, Bob's 3 to think on. Here are 3 lip-smacking DB7s that Uncle Bob has tracked down. Get in quick before he presses the bin button. Not that red one under the gear knob though. Never touch that. A private seller in the Surrey stockbroker belt has this 121,000-mile DB7 for sale at £16,000 on Auto Trader. 2003 DB7 Vantage V12, £16,000 on Auto Trader, the cheapest V12 Vantage we could find. This 121,000-mile 2003 automatic in Homewood Blue is being sold for age reasons, the owner, not the car. The only advisory on the March 2019 Mo was an edge-worn back tire, so it will probably need setting up on the wheel aligner. Tempting though, this 67,000-mile 3.2 auto hasn't been used much, if at all, in the last couple of years and is for sale by a dealer on eBay. 1998 DB7 3.2, £19,999 on eBay, and British Racing Green with pipe parchment hide. This 67,000-mile 3.2 auto hasn't been used much, if at all, in the last couple of years. Its Mo expired in March 2017, but the seller will put a new ticket on it for the new owner. With 14 stamps in the book, a hefty wad of invoices, you wouldn't expect it to fail, or to lose value. It's got 34,000 miles and looks spotless in and out, but the price tag is £35,995 for this one-owner DB7 convertible for sale on Piston Heads. 2002 DB7 Vantage V12 Volante, £35,995 on Piston Heads at 34,000 miles and spotless inside and out. This one-owner sage green with parchment leather convertible with the 5-speed auto box just needs a bespoke registration to pass for a much younger car. Lovely. What to watch out for if you buy a DB7 bodywork. You might be more surprised to learn that later DBs weren't as well protected as earlier ones, so don't let your fear ramp up in proportion to car's age. Where might you get it? In the floor pan, wheel arches, the sill ends before the rear arches, the front suspension and top mounts, the bulkhead behind those mounts, the jacking points, and the suspension radius arms. Some of the body panels aren't made of regular steel, so accident repairs won't be cheap, and it's important to nip any stone chips in the bud. Inside, there's not as much kit as you might think, especially on earlier cars. Still, not having an obsolete built-in sat-nav isn't a bad thing, and most of us can surely live without electrically folding door mirrors. It does have electric windows, obviously, though you might wonder whether it really is so obvious if the combined window motor and regulator conks out and you're presented with a four-figure bill to fix it. Another modern convenience feature that is known for inconveniently conking out on DB7s is the air conditioning, either through leaks or, much more expensively, the evaporator behind the dashboard. A replacement windscreen fitted to any standard below perfect will create more leaks. Seat latches break, but the natural cabin materials are generally durable, as is the cloth Volante roof, but check that the rear three-quarter panel isn't worn. Also ensure that any Volante you're thinking of buying has its tonneau cover to protect the workings of the hood when it's down. The Aston Martin DB7 Volante convertible's roof has proved pretty durable, but do check it out and also look for a tonneau cover to protect it when down engine. Works prepared badge under the bonnet signifies that your car has it. The 6 is famous for its exhaust manifold. Timing chain tensioner failure, flagged up by a rattly chain, is catastrophic, and you also need to check the engine oil and gearbox coolers for leaks. Superchargers whine by definition, but if the noise seems excessive it may be due for a change of oil and coolant. Quite a few early manuals had their noisy gearboxes and diffs replaced under warranty. It would be good to see that in the service history. Although you'll enjoy better performance with the 6-speed manual gearbox, you might not be quite so keen on the change quality.